This is Noel's Monday Zoom webinar, free Zoom webinar on Mondays. Anybody out there? Hello, hello. Oh, someone's there. Excellent. Here y'all come. Perfect timing. Happy Monday, everyone. Happy Monday, everyone. Just getting things together here. Crazy Monday for us all. I am absolutely positive that is the case. Thank you for showing up. It is March 1st, ready for our first office hours of the month. I know I am. Just having a crazy Monday, getting ready to send one of my pizza henchmen to Dallas on Thursday. We're going to be doing some consulting there this week and next, doing some New York pizza and some Detroit. So that should be fun. Just trying to get everything together. So I hope you guys are doing well. I am going to start pretty quickly today because I want to get going with the Q&A. I will be without Justin, of course, because Justin is busy doing other things. So that's a good thing, actually. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring Aaron. I'm going to bring you on lickety split. Aaron has been to more of these things than probably anyone. That's Aaron, A-A-R-O-N. Then we've got A-R-I-N, Aaron. Hi, Aaron. How are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Gary, good to see you, of course. How are you, sir? Where are you, Gary? Bringing you in, bringing you in. Gregory Sturgis, please come along if you'd like. Love to have you. Gregory, you've been promoted to panelist. Congratulations. Let's see, Chris Neal, come on over. Yes, you've made it. Gary, doing that celebratory dance we all know and love. All right, let's see. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. I can't seem to bring Gregory across. Wonder why. Maybe he's on a cell phone. Anyway, how y'all doing? Welcome. There's Kent coming through. Trying to promote y'all all at once so we can have a nice, fun conversation. Let's see. Let's see what we got going on here. I've got some of you on. That's good, but not all of you. Let's see, Greg. I'll try to bring you on again. Not sure why I couldn't the last time. All right, you guys. So here we have it. Here we have it. It's a small group tonight, which is awesome. Maybe we don't even have to use the chat. Maybe we can just raise our hands like honest, hardworking people and do it the old-fashioned way. I call on you. You come on. You ask a question. Danny Perez coming on. Brett coming on. I'm going to bring you guys on to panelists. Make sure you come on with your audio muted, and if you do want to stay, if you do want to be a part of it, but you don't want anybody to know who you are, then change your name and don't come on with video, because who knows, we might be recording this. Who knows? I mean, we always do record. I never quite know if we're going to do anything with it. Some of these will be up online one day so other people can learn from all of our questions. So that's a beautiful thing. So welcome one, welcome all. I hope you guys have some good questions for me today. Let me just check one little thing here. Oh my God. I'm working on a project, as I was just mentioning, and I just found out there's no pizza stones in the pizza oven 3 days before we have to be there. So can you imagine if I got to a consulting job in another state and I found out there were no pizza stones in the pizza oven? I have a question for you guys. If there are no pizza stones in your pizza oven, is it even a pizza oven or is it an oven? Aaron, you're laughing. You're laughing in Pennsylvania. All the way from Pennsylvania, you're laughing at me. The lighting is not good. You're backlit, Aaron, but I'm sure I can see you smirking. Is it true? Yes. Now you're actually smiling. So awesome. Awesome. Aaron, do you have any questions to start today, or are you just hanging out, having fun with us? If you feel like talking a little, let's talk a little. All right. We're not going to do that normal dance we do where we make you guys ask questions in the chat. Let's talk today. So if anybody has any questions they want to start with, raise your little old hand and away we will go. And if not, Aaron, jump right in. Let's do it.
So loved the class yesterday with you, Stefano, and did a bake last night after I felt like it was kind of ready. I feel like my measurements were off slightly for my pans. I probably should have done my math a little better. Yeah. But I ended up learning that for the balls I made, I didn't want to mess with them. Watching him do that technique was amazing.
Right.
So helpful to do that right on the spot, because I feel like what I might have forgotten or not really been able to do it as good. But anyways, it turned out pretty good after I did a couple of them, because I had 8 total. I did a pretty big batch. But my question is, so today I rebaked some that was just par baked from yesterday because I did some double bakes and then just left some par baked.
Yeah.
Would that be a hard situation, kind of like you told me before, to make it crispier? I put it back in a Lloyd's pan and it didn't really crisp up the way I wanted it.
All right. So there's a couple things. Here's what I was talking with Stefano before class, and we talked about it a little bit during class. So for those of you that weren't there, we were doing relatively high hydration Roman style pizza Bianca. If you spoke Italian better than me, you might try to say pizza Bianca alla Romana. So for American flour, it would be something like about 85% hydration, but he was using a very soft Italian flour, so we were at about 75%. But the question Aaron has to do with par baking. And so one of the things we were talking about is it better? And a lot of it, I already know the answer from a lot of Italian bakers. Is it better to do the par bake and then freeze? Or is it better to do the par bake and then wrap and just refrigerate? And so, Aaron, you may have already answered that. So let me see if I understand your question. Did you refrigerate in between yesterday and today, or did you just leave it out at room temperature? I know you didn't freeze it, right?
I refrigerated, but I actually, Justin from Apollonia told me that he has success freezing his kind of dough like that. So I'm guessing freeze is better.
Yeah.
It dries out, he said, right? It kind of.
It depends. Here's the thing. Yes, it does dry out a little bit, but the thing with freezing is if you're freezing something for a few days, it doesn't dry out nearly as much as it does if you freeze it for a few months, right?
Like for a while, yeah. He's like he experimented, I guess, or whatever. But I ended up. The other interesting thing that I thought was kind of cool was I was using that Caputo Supra, which was 0. And 0. And so I ended up adding more water and it really worked out well. I was at 82.3%. I ended up with over like almost like about 990, like around there out of the 1207 on a batch, like 1207 grams of flour total with the vegan and everything, like total formula. And so I ended up a little higher and I liked it, but I was just wondering what Stefano did. My other question was going to be, was he ending up at that 75 then? What he did?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. So, it's all relative. So guys, we were talking about this yesterday in class for those of you that weren't there. When you're talking about American flours compared to traditional Italian flours, if you have one that's 12.75% and the other is 12.75%, you would think they'd be the same flour, but they're really not, because the way that they quantify their flours in Italy is a lot different than we do here. And so some of the numbers that you see on the side of the bag or on the website, it doesn't necessarily correlate. And so one of the things we were talking about is not just the level of protein of the flour, but also the quality of the gluten and how well it can take water, right? And how well it can, what kind of fermentation tolerance it has, and even what kind of mixing tolerance it has. So the question Aaron is asking is, did this Stefano's recipe, and he had like 2 or 3 different recipes, right? Because he had a few different flours he was fooling with. Did his recipe actually equal 75%? And so it's a tough question to answer because we were basically working with 3 different doughs. There was the biga dough that we started with. Then there was something that I called the interim dough, which is the sum of all the ingredients minus the biga, right? And then we had a third dough, which is the final dough. And so one of the things that's really difficult when you're working with pre-ferments is you have, let's say you're trying to do like the dough we did in the advanced class, Aaron, right? That was an 85% hydration dough, no biga. Once you start messing with a biga, which is 45% or 44% hydration, you have to change all of the numbers around so that no matter what, you should end up with the same hydration. But he ended up coming in with a much lower hydration because he was trying to account for all these different kinds of beautiful Italian flour that he was using. So
that was the reason for my question, because I'm using an Italian flour too.
Yeah, now you're using a different kind of Italian flour. You're using the Nuvola. Right. And the Nuvola from Caputo is meant for high hydration and longer fermentation and even a more intense mix. So it's literally engineered for a lot of the things that American flours are engineered for. Right. And for all I know, there's some North American flour in that bag. Right. They will never confirm nor deny what's in that bag. and that's fine. That's on them. But I'm assuming that they need some really strong flour in order to absorb all that water and allow for all the fermentation.
For me, like more confirming that I was correct, that I could play around with that and go a little higher because of the way that flour is designed. And then,
yeah, I don't know if you need to. You're around
okay,
82%. Is that what you said you're at? I don't think you need to.
Okay,
I think right in the 80s is about right. I've mixed that flour at 85 and it works fine. You can definitely do well with it. But, you know, a lot of people have this idea that, and including me, that there's certain hard numbers. And once you cross over a number like 80, you're at high hydration, and underneath that number, you're not. It doesn't really account for the difference between Italian flours and American.
And then what about the biga? I went both with the same, the Nuvula on the biga and the actual, you know, mix. So would it be, if I could play around with that and do something a little different with the biga flour?
It depends how long you're going to ferment it for. What I always recommend is fine. If you want to mess with a biga, that's great. I always I like to take the total formula, right? Which includes the biga, and make it as a straight dough first. And see how well you can do with it, figure out what your friction factor is, all of that stuff. And then once you nail that, go back and add the biga in, or try it with sourdough, a stiff or a liquid levain, and then play with that. Because you saw how hard it was to do a biga, right? You've even been in some of the classes with Michele, right?
Yep.
Those bigas are hard.
It was. And I was thankful that it went well with the mix, but at first it was it got really stiff, the dough. I wish I would have started adding the water a little bit sooner, but it really came together nicely. I was a little surprised how nicely it came together, but so it worked out. I'm hoping that means that my figuring stuff out and technique is getting a little better with just like as I'm going.
I'm sure it is.
Adjustment stuff. But anyways, I appreciate it. I'll let you get to some other people, but thank you so much.
Just curious, did you bake any during class, or are you saving yourself?
No, I did it. I did it last night. So
okay. You have any pictures you want to show us maybe later?
Yeah, I posted 2 on Instagram.
All right. Well, how about this? Yeah. We'll if you want to send us some links in the chat, it would be nice to see what you're working with.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, good. Thanks, Aaron.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else feel like raising a hand? Anybody else want to ask any questions? Aaron, can I call you Aaron too, just for now?
Sure.
How are you?
I'm good. So I also made pizza Bianca last night, but not alla Romana. And what I'm struggling with is I get these valleys in the dough.
Yeah.
Valleys where
I know the ones.
Yeah, and it just like sinks in, and then I get this kind of squidgy, soggy layer on top, and I'm not really into it.
Okay, a few questions.
Yeah.
So are you doing the advanced 1 recipe?
Yeah.
Okay. And are you cooking them in a pan?
Yes.
What kind of pan are you using?
I use a large kind of like cookie sheet size Sicilian, which is about 2 inches deep, and then I have a 9x13 Detroit.
Okay. Now, can I ask you a question about your Sicilian? How big is that pan?
It's about the size of a cookie sheet.
Okay. So that's like American cookie sheet's going to be, the big one is going to be 26 by 18.
Yeah, medium, about that size.
And how many grams of dough do you use in a big one like that?
I typically use a full batch of the advanced when I do that.
About 1,850 grams plus or minus.
Yeah.
All right. So you have a fair amount of dough in there. That's good. What kind of flour are you using?
I use Central Milling ABC bread flour.
Super strong. Sounds excellent. Are you able to reach the outsides of the pan, or is that not really a goal?
I reach the outsides fine.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
All right. So here's the thing I would say. You can go as high as 2,400 grams for a pan like that. That would be like a thick focaccia. And so what I like to do is I like to start with too much dough, right? And see what happens. And then I go less and less and less. You can go all the way down to probably 1,200 grams, right? For a full sheet pan. It sounds like a very small amount, but see what happens with that dough is that if you have a problem with one point of the process, usually the problem is caused by the point before. And so one of the things that we were learning yesterday, working with this guy Stefano from Italy, is the pre-shape, right? And so he was taking this dough and he was gathering it up mozzarella style, turning it upside down, finishing the way out. So these dough balls were 1,180 grams for about a half a sheet pan, right? And then he would do this thing where he would very gently kind of gather it up, and then he would just kind of turn it over once and kind of give it a quick roll, and that was it. And he was able to get a pretty nice stretch, but you know what? Even he had some points in the middle that were a little thin and sagged a little bit.
Yeah, so, what I struggle with when I'm not doing like a circular style with that particular recipe is I do like the third folding where it's like I put it into a rectangle and then I go third and then I fold that on top and then I kind of fix that seam and then I flip it over and kind of stretch it to get as much length as I possibly can. And then I let it sit at room temperature for about 4 hours or so, so that it spreads out.
All right, so let me understand this. When you do your pre-shape, you're going a third, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
And then you stretch it out like, so you're missing the first half. Before you go a third and third, you got to fold it in half.
Do a taco?
You do, if you want, do like the gentlest taco you've ever done, and then turn it the other way and do maybe a third and a third. Or don't even turn it the other way and do a third and third. Take it and roll it over. So you like imagine this piece of paper is a piece of dough. Roll it over like this. It comes back and you're done.
Okay.
It's almost like you're folding over a third and a third, but it's a little more gentle than that. And so if you fold the first side just as gently as you can, and then you either fold or roll the second side, then you've got what you call a pre-shape, where you've got evenness one way and then evenness the other. And that's really what you want. So probably your pre-shape is incomplete, and that's why you're not getting a good final shape. That said, that is the most perilous dough on the planet, right? There's a Spanish version called Pan Cristal, which is 100% hydration. Okay, probably that is the most perilous dough on the planet, but this one right here is really impossible to work with. And honestly, it could take you months, if not years, until you solve that problem. And I don't want to be that guy to say, sorry, it's going to be a while, but you just have to keep practicing and practicing. I used to have that same problem when I made that dough, and it used to kind of make me mad. So the way I solved it was with a little bit too much dough. And then I would try to always take off like 50 grams or 75 grams every time. I finally got down to the point where I could use a very small amount of dough, but even sometimes you get a thin spot. You know, when you're working with that really like wet dough, man, it's like it punishes you if you make the tiniest little mistake. So I think you should not look for perfection. You should look for imperfection. And when you reach it, you're like, okay, I'm human. Next time I'll do better. And don't beat yourself up.
Yeah. I'm currently working with a new mixer and a new oven from like what I'm used to. So I'm like, this is me kind of re-exploring everything and kind of going back to basics, because like now I have to readjust my whole process again. So I'm like, there's going to be stuff that I need to adjust.
I'll give you another cheat if you want. Do a little bit of a pan proof. And what I mean by that is when you like, what I like to do is I like to push the dough out like 60%, let it rest, right? Come back 20 minutes later, push the pan out, give it a nice little stretch, get to 90%, let it rest. Don't pull it too hard. Then you let it proof a little more. You get the final pull out, you finger it. That instead of trying to do it in like 10 minutes, you do it in an hour. That gives you a little bit of insurance, right? It's not technically the way they do it in Rome, if you're making pizza Bianca, but it works. So maybe a little bit of cheat, a little bit of time takes the stress off the dough, and you're not going to have those thin spots.
Okay.
All right.
I'll give that a shot.
Got it. You're very serious about this. I like you. I'm very serious about this too. Excellent. Yeah, I think I saw some of your stuff on Instagram recently. It looked good.
Yeah, I try to tag you guys whenever I'm posting.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, keep up the good work. Bye, Aaron. All right. Anybody else out there feeling like they want to share? Gary, are you feeling shy today? What's going on over there? Danny, Kent. If anybody wants to share, this would be the time to do it. Danny, go ahead.
I know.
How are you, sir?
My question is like, what's your ideal like process?
For which one?
Just like because I took your advanced class and you didn't really say like how you, let's say.
So for yeah, so there's a lot of different processes. So like, all right, so it really depends on what style you're trying to do. And I used to refer to my pan pizza as a pizza Bianca. But you know what I noticed? So many people are trying to do so many things with that wet dough, from Detroit style pizza to Sicilian. People are trying to do even hearth style bread. So, I have a lot of different processes. Like right now I'm working on a Detroit style pizza, right? And we're using a high hydration. And so what we're trying to do, that process right there, what we're trying to do is trying to get a nice even bake off the par bake. Right. And so we're having some problems because we actually don't want a really thick pizza. We want like a medium thin crust. And so the hardest thing to do is let it proof in the pan and be kind of generous with time. And so I'll tell you what we're doing for that. So we're doing like an 8x10 a Detroit style pizza with only 280 grams of dough in the little pan. And we're doing like about a 2-hour proof, right? And so one of the things that I'm fooling with for the first time is using a dough docker. Have you ever seen those before? Terrible little torture implements with the rolling pointers on it.
Hey, Adam Kuban loves his dough docker. No,
I know. No, I know. I try not to. I always thought that they were like kind of cheating, but I'm using my dough docker now, and I actually really like it because if you use it really gently, right, unlike how some people do it, you can just kind of take some of the air out of the dough where it needs to be, and you don't get that beautiful proof. So what we're doing is we're rolling out the dough balls with a rolling pin. Right. Yeah. And then we're kind of putting them in the pan to proof, and we're just putting a little bit of, I call it grease, around the outsides of the pan. Right. And then we're pushing it out with our fingers and letting it proof, and pushing it out with our fingers and letting it proof. And then at the very end, we're just kind of bringing it out to the edges of the pan and sticking it where the grease is. And it works really nice. And I know a lot of people. What's that?
Would you let it? Because I've seen, like, let's say the Pizza Bible, let's say he says he'll let it grow all the way till the top of the rim.
Yeah, yeah.
Then I see like some people say, or like the focaccia classes I've taken with you, are like they dimple it and like 10, 15 minutes or 30 minutes max, they put it in the oven.
I would say that we don't even get to 25% of the depth of the pan. I don't really want a big, thick style of Detroit for this. And I don't really like a big, thick style, like Roman style. I like medium thin crust whenever possible. But you know what? When I teach, sometimes I put too much dough in because I don't want people to get frustrated. People want the dough to get to the edges of the pan. And so sometimes a little more dough goes a long way. But for me, the most important thing is patience. So I've worked at a couple of like old school Detroit places, and it's just about patience. And you got to get there early in the morning, and the dough is ready when it's ready, And people say, well, how long should I let it rise for? And the real answer is until it's ready, And so, yeah, if you have an 11 o'clock service, I suggest.
Ready?
Well, because you do it a lot, right? Yeah. And so I brought this up yesterday during class. When you ask a real chef, like, how to know when something is done, they're like, it's done when it's done. They're not going to give you some stupid shortcut, right? There are no shortcuts. You have to do it enough times, and you have to have failures and successes. And when you get a knack for how your dough is supposed to feel, you want to get back to that place, and that's when it's ready. And I don't like go ahead.
If I had, let's say I have the same dough, I take it out, I dimple it, like you said, I wait 20 minutes, I dimple it again, I wait 20 minutes, I dimple it, it gets to the corners, and then I put it in the oven versus it gets to the corners, and I let it proof another hour or two.
I like to put, and then you know what we'll do in professional environments. I like the Detroit style pans with the covers, right? And I proof with the cover on, and then it goes right into the refrigerator to kind of retard the fermentation. I mean, people have, I don't know why everybody's always rushing everything. These things take time, and when it's ready, it's ready. Have you guys ever seen the pictures of Descendant, Detroit style pizzeria in Toronto?
Yeah.
That guy, I mean, he's like I don't even think he's ever been to Detroit, but I think he's doing really awesome Detroit style pizza. And you know how he does it? He doesn't rush the dough.
Yeah.
So when I was there consulting for him, one of the things that we tried to do was set up different like fermentation rooms. And one of them was like in the 60s, and one of them was in the 70s, and one of them was in the low 80s, very low 80s, right? When I got there, he was using this proofing box, and the lowest temperature was 85, and then like a 2 was like 90, and a 3 was 95. So they were proofing their dough at like 92 degrees, and it was getting over fermented too fast because they were trying to rush it. And it wasn't until we ditched that proof box and we heated up a room to like 80, 81, and then you put it in there and you let it go slow. Right? When it's ready, you know, because when you push down at the dough ball, it doesn't push back. That's actually when it's ready. You know? And everybody, go ahead.
Because I think you went to Toronto, you said. Was there any flour that you liked? Because I find it's hard to find some good flour.
Here's the thing. I only found flour that I didn't like, and it worked just fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So a lot of people have this idea that you need some certain flour to make things work. I think you can make stuff work with almost any flour. Right. I would say the trick is really to blend flours. And so probably for a dough like that, you don't want anything really strong. Otherwise you're going to have like something chewy. So I would say blend a flour that's maybe 11.5 with a flour that's maybe 12.5% protein, and find something nice and soft. Right. Okay. And if you find that your dough is taking too long to expand to the outsides of the pan, then don't even change the hydration. Just change the flour, make it weaker. It's actually cheaper for you. Lower protein flours are cheaper.
Okay.
Right. These days, I would say that less is more when it comes to protein. And most of the styles of pizza that people are trying to make require not high protein, but low protein flour.
Okay.
Thanks, and usually way more time, Danny, than you think.
Yeah, no, I'll do tests. Like I'll do like 5 doughs with 5 different flours, but it's like just 250 grams of flour. So I feel like the tests they're like, I don't know. What? Then I'm pinching a bit of yeast, you know, like, and then I pinch a little bit of yeast, but maybe I pinched a little more in one of them. So I'm like trying to compare something.
Maybe you did. Well, do you have a gram scale, like one of those tiny little guys?
In the dough ball, it's like, I don't know, 0.1 grams or 0.01 grams.
This one goes down to 0.05. This is like a $16 scale. It's made by Salter.
Okay, I'll buy it out.
I mean, if you're going to spend money on something, spend money on a $16 gram scale. I hear it has multiple uses.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Thanks.
There you go.
Great class yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too. Thanks for supporting us. Anybody else have any questions? Come on now. Don't be shy, you guys. Here we are. Gary. And then Kent, you're next. All right.
Hey.
Hey, sir. How are you?
My brain is trying to come back together after yesterday's saga.
It was 4 hours. That was a long class.
But then I had to cook last night. So I didn't finish till like 9 o'clock or something.
Awesome. How did it go?
Well, the train was on 2 wheels for part of the excursion. So to say, I only had the V2 recipe. I didn't have the V4 one. So there's that.
It was the same. We just changed some of the math on it, and there was an error in the instructions, but it didn't affect the recipe at all.
I'd like to say, first of all, that Stefano's technique was fantastic. Right. And for Aaron, by the way, that's the last half of the advanced one video, because that's kind of where that one ends. What he did yesterday shows excellent technique from there on. So she might want to watch that, because that was phenomenal. His technique, and like you were just describing, his pinching the corners, then one roll over.
Yeah.
And very nice. And, I made taco and all that came up good. But, then we got into dimpling, and that's another thing. He was really specific on how to dimple, not down, push like that. That was excellent stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just like, apparently maybe I didn't have enough flour, or maybe because I didn't make it to the edges of the pan. And I was using, my mix came together really fast. I was using Le Cinque Stagioni Tipo Uno.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really like that flour, but I had a bag. So, and I don't know, it's the dimpling. I mean, it looked really, after I finished dimpling it, like I was killing it. And yet when I baked it, I got quite a rise. I was completely surprised about that. But I'd like to go for a little lighter product, so, and I know that somebody had posted on Instagram something, the high hydration probably as a photo for this class.
Yeah.
And it was like that tall, and it was a guy in Texas or something.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa, that was incredible. I don't know.
Yeah. So no, I know what you're talking about. So here's the thing. What I would do is I would forget about the biga. Take the final dough formula, right? If you're using American flour, dial it up from 75% to 80 or 85, right? And do like a 2-day bulk fermentation. And then ball it out gently like he did yesterday. Let it sit and proof for, his proofing schedule was very short because that's the way, he's a professional. I like to let it proof for probably 3-4 hours, right? And you can get a really, 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 really light and airy pizza from that super long bulk. He's a bakery worker, and they don't do that in most bakeries. They mix in the morning, and except for the last batch of the day, which you mix at night and make in the morning, they mix in the morning and bake in the afternoon. They mix in the afternoon and they bake at night. That's just how they do it. Yeah, I'm more of a pizza guy, so I like to go long on bulk and let it wait a few days.
My other two comments are, thank God for frozen bags of frozen corn.
Why?
Well, because in the interim dough recipe, my biga came out great, by the way. It had incredible aroma.
Good.
The best one ever. Well, it said filtered room temperature water in the biga, and then the interim just said water. But then in the final, it said cold. Well, that was in the refrigerator. Wait a minute, I didn't use that one. I probably should have, because it would have come out to the exact number right away. So I was a little hot on the mix, so I threw the bags of frozen corn under the mixer.
Ah, excellent.
Yeah, where did I learn that?
Not me. Was it Justin?
Intermediate 2 or intermediate 1. Yeah, and it helped. I came out at 80 degrees.
I love it.
That was fantastic. So between the frozen corn and I'm going to try what you said about the bulk. Hey, frozen corn, everybody. That's a great tip.
He's talking about icing his bowl with corn, frozen corn, when the dough is not is a little warmer than you want it, and that makes perfect sense.
It came together really fast. Is that because of the flour? I mean, it was like 10 minutes.
Are you talking about the recipe we used yesterday?
Yeah.
Because the hydration is much lower.
What, yesterday's hydration was lower?
Yeah, 75% compared to 85 with the advanced class.
And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, if you're using a KitchenAid, you should probably be on 4 or 5 now. What? I wasn't shifting appropriately.
Well, live and learn.
It was a good class, and I would recommend people.
Thank you. Well, we're going to do it again, and we definitely recorded it. So I think that one went well enough that we'll be able to go straight to video on demand. Hopefully, maybe 5 weeks, maybe 6.
Yeah, I just got to install an oven like that in my house.
I know, we all do.
If anybody didn't see it, they rolled a rack of trays into the
rotating
oven,
rack oven.
It's a room. It's like a walk-in, but it's a walk-in oven.
It's a professional bakery. You're right. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
Stick with us. If you have any more questions, let me know. Kent, I believe you were next. Thank you for your patience.
If I don't have more questions, I'm not making pizza.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
How are you, sir?
Yeah. Good. How are y'all?
Good.
I have a few questions.
Yeah. Where are you tonight? Where are you tonight?
North Carolina.
How's North Carolina?
It's good. Yeah.
Good.
Well, it's warming up, so I like that.
I like that too.
This is I guess a few classes back because I wasn't in the last one, but this is with the Joey Buterbone, the sourdough.
That was great, right? Yeah, that was a good class.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm all about. I switched to sourdough baking like 2 or 3 years ago, and that's all I do now. Everything awesome. I do is sourdough. So I have a few questions. If the restaurant is closed for like a day or two,
yeah.
And I know, like, I've gone on vacation. I'll put my starter in the fridge, come back, feed it like 2 or 3 times a day just to get it back up. How do you do that in a commercial setting? Like, if you close down, like, I know he's the owner, so you work all the time. I understand that. Yeah. But I wonder, like, if he goes on vacation or if he's closed on a Sunday or Monday, like, how does he feed it?
Yeah. So what I would say is that when you get to the point where his starter is at, when he's feeding it twice a day for pretty much years on end, it's pretty active. So what I would say is that, let's say you took a vacation for a week, all you'd probably need to do is feed your starter and get it into your walk-in relatively early in the schedule, so that right. Even though you feed it with cold water and it goes in relatively cold, it's not going to have time to start to proof it all. And so you have like a lot of shelf life in the refrigerator. So what I would say is that he's always closed on Mondays. I would make sure to get back on a Sunday, right? And the last thing you do before you hit the house from the airport is you stop in, you give your starter a quick feed, right? And then not a lot. I would do like a 25% feed or a 50% feed. So like 2 parts Levain, 2 parts water, 2 parts flour, 1 part Levain. And then the next morning you have a Levain that's not quite as active. And I think if you feed it 1 time, it should be ready in probably 3 hours. If you want to be extra secure, you feed it twice in 6 hours, you should have a kick-ass Levain ready to go.
Okay. Because, yeah, I know he said he was feeding 100%, but that's because he wants it so active.
Yeah.
For what he was doing, right?
I used to always feed my stuff 100%, but I've been in a lot of situations where that wasn't possible. And so you can get a really active starter at 50% or 25 or even 10% if you time it right and you temp everything properly. So there's a lot of ways to do it. And the one thing you really don't want to ever do is, if the starter's been sitting in the fridge for too long, I wouldn't take it out, feed it once, and make bread with it or pizza with it. You can do it, but you get these off flavors and weird aromas, and probably your customers might not notice, your kids or your family might not notice, but you'll notice, right?
Yeah, it gets that alcohol on top.
Absolutely.
And when you mix it back in, it just it gets a real nasty taste. Okay, that makes sense. And that's, I guess it's like what you said before. It's just knowing your starter, or being like a chef, knowing when something's ready.
I'll recommend a good book where they confront a lot of these issues. So have you heard of The Bread Builders before?
No.
It's a classic old book. It was written by Danielle Wing and Alan Scott, and it's a really cool book. It's a 2-part book. The first part of the book is really all about different people doing sourdough like 25 different ways. And most of them are doing it at home or in tiny little cottage industry type setups, right? Not big commercial setups. And they show you all these amazing ways and all the different ways that people feed and all of the variations on a theme. And it's really a great book. There's not really any decent pictures, but that's really what the book is about. It's got a lot of really cool graphs and charts and a lot of bad black and white photography. And then the second part of the book is all about how to build an oven that's meant for bread baking. And it's a really great book. So this is what it looks like on the front. That's a picture of Chad Robertson before anybody ever heard of Chad Robertson. He was an apprentice for Alan Scott. So Chad Robertson's from Tartine, now probably one of the most famous bakers in the United States. But back then he was an apprentice. So it's a really great book. It's one of these books where you can definitely find it on Amazon for like probably $8. It's a great read. And it's one of those things where you're like, this book doesn't look like much, and you'll find 25 tidbits about feeding and combining flour. And it's just things that people do in like their little back alley oven in the middle of nowhere that actually really works.
Okay, thank you.
So put that on your Christmas list for yourself.
What was the name of that again?
It's called The Bread Builders. And the main, there's two parts. Alan Scott, who's a super famous white oven builder. I think he was from Northern California. He's one of the authors. And the other author is Daniel Wing, W-I-N-G. And the full name is The Bread Builders, Hearth Loaves, and Masonry Ovens. It's a great book to have. And you can read it and then refer back to it many, many times. That's what I like books for. I like to refer back to stuff. Right. And they get into different feeding schedules too. They're very specific. It's good for that. If you spend $12 for that $25 book, you're overpaying. All right.
Okay. And then I guess I do the same thing as Joey. I do a room temp fermentation sourdough. I have noticed that, and I check my temperature regularly. I have a laser, point away, and always kind of check it. Sometimes I don't know if it's and I switch up my flour. I don't know if it's the protein levels and all that, but if sometimes my dough will just like fall apart when it's ready to shape out, to press out, the shape in the pie. So it just kind of falls apart. And I know it's the acid buildup in there that's breaking that down, but I'm not sure why, if it's more of the flour or more of me just not paying attention.
It sounds like you're over fermented if it falls apart. And so, for me, the magic temperature is about 55 degrees. Once you get to like 60, that's pretty high. And so I don't know how much Levain you use. For me, the magic number is about 2% Levain for a 24-hour feed. And then maybe up to, at the most, like 5% for an overnight feed.
I'm doing 4.
Yeah, 4 is great. 4 is great. But again, I don't like to go even as high as 60 degrees. I like to keep it around 55 so it stays in control. And then if you have to at the last minute, you can move it to a warm place. But if that dough gets over fermented, you're done.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And good questions.
One more.
Yeah.
Anyone that's doing bar pie sourdough?
Not really, because most people that do bar pies are not really. I'm sorry to say it. I wouldn't call them artisans. They're people who are making awesome pizza in a very specific way, and I don't think they want to be bothered by sourdough. But you could definitely do it.
Okay, my wife's from Chicago, so I'm trying to sourdough it up. So trying to figure out.
Have you ever taken Adam's class?
Mm-mm.
So Adam Kuban does a bar pie class. And we've taught about 3 of them together. And so I'm trying to get him to schedule another one. I was texting him this weekend. So probably we'll get one up in about, hopefully 3-4 weeks. You should come to that and see how he does it. And then it's pretty easy to turn it into sourdough.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good questions. Thank you, Kent. Thanks for your support. Appreciate it. Anybody else out there feeling like they want to ask a question? I'm all ears, guys. I gotta go right at 6 o'clock today, so we got 15 minutes. All right. Anything? Nobody? All right. If you guys want to just sit around and talk, we can do that. All right. So let's see.
You got a question?
Yeah.
You're getting some pretty intense students in your classes here. Jonathan Goldsmith in yesterday's class.
Yeah, he was a big
one.
one.
The week before. And then Stefano was actually talking about him. I thought that was kind of neat. He said it was the best pizza he ever had.
Anybody familiar with Spacca Napoli in Chicago? Yeah, no, it's interesting because, what's funny is that, I never worked with students that weren't professionals before. And then when COVID started, I kind of succumbed to the pressure. But most of the people I work with are chefs. So John is a chef. He has a place called Spacca Napoli in Chicago. I can, let me see if I can.
It kind of came up being one of the top 50 pizzerias in Italy.
Yeah, here's what
in Chicago.
I'll put a link in the chat. One of the things that's interesting about John is that a lot of people will say, oh, he's one of the best pizzerias in America that does Neapolitan style. People from Italy say he's one of the best pizzerias in America, as good as any pizzeria in Italy. And that's what actually John is trying to do. He's not competing with American pizzerias. He's competing with Italian. And so, he sources everything super carefully. And I've been working with him for years, and he never wants to step on the toes of tradition to do anything too modern. And so we've worked with longer fermentation schedules. We've worked with high hydration doughs, and he's always calling the guys from Caputo. There's a guy named Mauro Caputo. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of him. He's Mauro. He's like one of the few people that works there that's a scientist, and so he's the guy that does all the blending for all the flour, Mauro Caputo. And so there's a lot of rules that Jonathan lives by, and sometimes he's afraid to break some of them. So when I met him, he invited me to come out to Chicago, and we did some experimentation in the 55 to 60 degree range with long fermented doughs. And we got some really beautiful doughs, 2, 3, 4, even 5 days fermented. But he was using a really controlled environment. And so he set up a temperature controlled dough room, and we were getting that stuff out at 60 degrees from the mixer, which is really cold for Neapolitan, holding it for 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and we got some really beautiful results. And now I've got him working with high hydration doughs, and this last round he let go for 4 or 5 days, which is very on Jonathan, and he got some really beautiful results. So you guys should check out Spacca Napoli if you're ever in Chicago again. It's a real treat. You really do feel like you're in Italy, and he imports. There's very few things on his menu that come from the US unless it's an emergency. He actually, I'm kind of surprised, he uses Grande Fior di Latte mozzarella, which I think is a really beautiful American Fior di Latte. I don't know if anybody else has tried it, but if Jonathan's using it, I think it must be pretty good. But everything else he uses is Italian. I don't, except for that one thing, and that's only an emergency if his shipment doesn't come through. So yeah, thanks Gary for bringing that up. Yeah, there's been a lot of people that people don't realize. I've had some pretty famous chefs hanging out in class. They just want to come and learn, and it's actually because of you guys. I mean, probably the most common comment that I get from chefs is, "I can't believe your students are turning out those pizzas, right?" And it's all because I started doing these classes, and one week I was really busy, and so instead of posting one of my pictures, I just took one off the internet that somebody had posted, and I was like, man, these are good, and I don't have to post as much. I can just kind of repost, and then it turned into a selling point, I didn't really think about it like that at first. I was just being lazy. But now I realize that, what's the point of posting my own pictures when I can post yours? And they really, it's a testament to what we're doing and how hard everybody is working and how well the recipes and techniques work. So I think it's pretty fun. So I say this a lot and people don't believe me, but I feel like there are a lot of home pizza makers in this country that are maybe only making 6 or 8 pizzas on a busy night, but in a lot of ways they're better than what the professionals are doing. Now the professionals are making hundreds of pizzas a night, so it's not really an apples to apples comparison, but you guys are doing some pretty awesome work. So I think if you're attracting chefs to the classes, that's a good sign, right, Gary? There we go. Anybody else feel like talking about anything specific? Brett, I haven't seen you around here. I'm sorry to call you out, sir, but I see you sitting there. If anything you want to talk about, this would be the time to do it.
No, I'm just being a fly on the wall.
Nice.
I got was hoping to maybe take a class, so I was just seeing. I saw you on one of Peter Reinhardt's videos, so
oh yeah, cool.
Checking it out. It sounds just right up my alley. I'm trying to do everything with sourdough now.
Sourdough is good. You know what's so funny? I've been trying to get so many of the people that I work with to do sourdough classes, and they're like, no, I really want to do a vegan class. I'm like, sourdough is what people really want to do. So I'm actually going to be doing a class at the end of the month with Joey Buderbaugh. He's down in Orange County here in LA. And we did an advanced class just 2 weeks ago, and we had over 40 people in the class. And most of what he does is room temperature rises, not refrigerated. And he gets a really, really beautiful product out of what he's doing. So that's a class you're definitely going to want to, if you're into sourdough, that's a great class to look at. one of the things also, and I say it to him jokingly, but Joey's a chef that was doing fine dining, and we were lucky enough to work together once or twice. And he only ever got advice from me. He never worked in another pizzeria, never got any bad habits. So when he was working on his dough for the last couple of years, he would call me or text me and say, what do you think about this or that? So now when I go into his pizzeria and I see what he's doing, I'm so happy because he doesn't have any bad habits. All of his habits are good. And so, and he's taken stuff that I've taught him, and he's taken them to their logical extensions, which is the great thing about working with chefs, because you give them the knowledge, that they need, and then they actually improve upon it. So he's a testament to artisan baking. And all I'm really doing is I'm taking kind of artisan baking traditions, whether it's bread or pizza, and trying to use them to teach people to make better pizza, right? And so it does work. You just have to learn the rules and be patient and learn the tradition. And, a lot of people are in a rush, including me sometimes. But if you're not in a rush, I mean, Brett, how long have you been making pizza or bread for?
Well, it's been almost a year, I guess, right? Like since the pandemic. So, but I've been pretty serious. I have a friend and I were considering opening a place. So we've been renting a spot, and
That's awesome.
Having some consulting done, and we're up in Canada. So I'm in Toronto. I think maybe this guy Danny is in Toronto as well, maybe. But I do know Descendant, and that guy does some amazing pizzas.
Don't you think? He's great.
Oh yeah. Yes. So yesterday he posted something about, and my friend thought that he was calling somebody out because he said no par bake, and I mean his crust they just look amazing, right? So he thought, my friend thinks by him saying no par bake that he's calling out possibly somebody or anybody that's doing par bakes other Detroit.
He could be calling out a lot of people. He's a pizza purist, and he does everything the hard way, right? And he gets incredible results. There aren't that many people that would be willing to fight the fight that he's been fighting. But, he really insists that he gets the best quality out of not par baking, and he does. But not that many people can. He's, when they say don't sweat the details, he sweats every detail, right? And so, when I was there working with him, I was probably the fourth consultant that had been there, and I kind of thought he didn't need me, but he's really looking for knowledge. It's beyond just making great pizza. He really wants to understand how all the parts fit together. And so it's one of those things where, as good as you can get in 1 year, you can keep getting better after 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and he's never going to stop. And also, like, if you look at his menu, he barely has 10 pizzas on the menu, right? And if you go into his shop, there's barely 20 seats. But he does such high volume out of that shop because the quality is so good and the pizza is so consistent. And if you've been there, like the way that he tops pizzas is so excellent. I haven't been to too many pizzerias anywhere in the world that are that good.
Oh, really? Even for Detroit stuff, right?
I mean, I don't care. I think that guy, no matter what he did, he would do everything really well. Out of nowhere, he was working in construction, and he started working in fine dining, and he just liked it. And he didn't really have much of a background. He just really enjoyed working in the intense environment. And have you ever seen Chris before?
I've seen him, yeah.
He's like a real man. He's a big dude, and he works hard, and he fights hard, and he eats hard. Probably back in the day, he used to drink hard too. I mean, he does everything hard. I really appreciate that guy. He's never going to give up.
Yeah, he's got amazing pizza, and that place is always busy, and that's why it kind of seems like it's a great time to possibly do pizza, because pizza just seems like it's pandemic and recession proof. I call for pizza. Yeah, I call for a pizza, or I have to order it on Uber Eats. It is usually at least an hour and a half. I'm sold out.
Awesome.
So he's
doing
keep
up the good work. Yeah. Come to a class sometime. Trying to think. The intermediate class that we do, the intermediate one's really good because you get to learn a lot of the rules of baking. A lot of people do the video on demand classes because you get to watch the class over the course of a month. I think those work out pretty well. But definitely keep an eye on Joey's class. That's going to be an advanced 2 class.
Okay.
it's going to be a really good class again. Normally, we were going to actually go on to the and do a sourdough bread baking class, but so many people couldn't make the class and wanted another live version, so we scheduled another one in a month at the end of March. Aaron, let's go on to you. Thanks, Brett.
Quick question. So yesterday, Stefano did the biga with a hand mix. So I was just wondering, I just feel like it turned out a little better. Like, I guess using maybe the paddle, can maybe either help or hurt too. I feel like there's been a lot of conversations, you and Justin talking about how crazy these bigas can be with mixing them. But I was just wondering, because my KitchenAid doesn't seem to sometimes go down far enough, the paddle, if you're just using a small biga, like that half recipe, it wasn't, I ended up doing the full recipe because I was going to do 2. And then I was like, okay, well, maybe if I could hand mix. So do you like that as a recommendation?
It's way better. I like to hand mix all my pre-ferments. It just seems to work better.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was on the right track with that too. So that's why how I'm feeling. So thank you.
Good. James, I don't know if we answered your question about pizza Bianca, and then Chris, looks like you had one about dough being proofed, underproofed, or overproofed. One of the things that I would say is that you can't really learn about under or overproofing dough in a book. You have to just do both yourself, learn the hard way. I don't think there's a resource for that. I mean, you could buy a book like Advanced Bread and Pastry or any of these books, but they're not going to teach you about over or underproof dough. They're just going to tell you about the rules. And when you break a rule, then you have over or underproof dough. So that's my best answer. Sorry, you can't learn everything in the book. And I'm the guy that has more books than anyone I know, especially when it comes to cooking and baking. 5:58, you guys. Anybody else feeling like they have a question? Looks like Greg has his hand up. Eric, why don't you go first, then we'll get to Greg.
Yeah, I just want to know what class coming up are you most excited about?
That's a good question. I've got a lot of classes that I'm trying to get up, and the biggest problem now is that so many chefs are in such crazy environments that I can't really get any of the chefs to commit to anything beyond like 2 or 3 weeks away. So this is going to sound crazy. I have a couple of gluten-free classes that I'm pretty excited about. Yeah, I've got one coming up probably in about 2.5 weeks. And that's with a guy. He and his dad own a place called Authentic Foods, which is a flour company.
Are those the people that always come to your classes to do and then try to do a gluten-free version?
And I tried to not like their product because I don't like gluten-free pizza, but their flour is so good that it's not like all the other stuff that you buy in the store. And then I've got a friend named Philip who is he's not a pizza maker at all, but he's just a lifelong vegetarian and vegan, and he's like way off the grid in terms of buying like cool flour. And I went to his house once, probably 2 years ago, for pizza, and it was a gluten-free pizza, and I was like, oh god, this is going to be terrible. And it was so delicious that I said to him jokingly, would you ever want to teach a class? He's like, no, I don't want to give my recipe away. And then he kind of caught wind of like what was going on with some of my classes. He's like, I said, hey Philip, you ever want to teach a class? I was totally joking. We should do it. So we're actually working on a recipe. And actually what we're trying to do, because I know his pizza is great, is we need to get some good pictures, because unfortunately that's what sells classes these days. So I'll be doing a class with Philip Otto. Keep an eye on that one too. The first class is going to be cheap. It's going to be like $25, because I don't think, according to our data, vegans and vegetarians don't pay very much for classes. I don't know what it is. Right. So we're gonna probably keep the classes a little more on the affordable side. And so yeah, keep an eye on for those two. Hopefully they'll both be happening in the next 30 days.
Okay, great.
Here. Gregory, I see you have your hand up there. I don't know if you want to unmute or show your video. This would be the time to do it because it's 6:01.
Yeah,
All right, you guys. Yeah, what's up?
I was on that class with the sourdough, and I had mixed up a batch that evening and then again the next day, and both times the dough came out pretty slack, but I certainly wasn't in the commercial grade mixer. I was in a standard KitchenAid at home. So is there I guess, would you just keep going in the, in your home KitchenAid until, you start to see that, far more webbing or?
No, actually the thing that I would do is the opposite for that recipe, because Joey really is a chronic undermixer. That's how I taught him, and that's how he does it. So I'm not looking at the mix times, but his mix in his mixer before he added the salt was like maybe 2 minutes, and then he did a nice long auto lease, 20 or 30 minutes, and then his second mix was under 5 on first speed. He never even got to second. If I remember correctly, it was probably closer to 3 minutes. So I don't think you're looking to do a lot of mixing. He gets most of his structure from one stretch and fold and a 24-hour bulk. That's where you get your structure from. So I wouldn't worry about the mixer too much there. I would just, when you get the dough out, give it 1 or 2 stretch and folds, and a nice long room temperature bulk should solve all your problems.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gregory. Thanks for showing up, and thanks for asking questions.
Absolutely.
All right, you guys, it is 6:02 and I got to go. It's going to be one of those crazy weeks. I've got a lot of consulting jobs coming up, and I have a problem where I have a pizza oven in Dallas that has no pizza stones, and we're showing up on Thursday for 8 days to teach those guys to make pizza. So I got to find some pizza stones for an oven. I don't even know the model, or I don't know the manufacturer date or the serial number. So that's what I'm going to be doing tonight, trying to find some stones to get to Dallas in the next 48 hours. So thank you to you all. Hopefully I'll be back next week. And thank you all for coming. I appreciate you more than you know. Have a great night. Have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you soon. Thanks, everybody.